Hey folks, Avi here. As I probably talked about a few weeks ago, a really close friend of mine, Kimberley Chapin, passed away. And I thought one of the things I wanted to do is that I wanted to kind of give her a little memorial of my own. So what I've decided to do in memory of my great friend Kim is to talk to her friends and people who knew her well and put together this little this special episode where friends of hers and we just talk about Kim, and we tell you stories about her, and we talk about, things we loved about her, stories about her, and just, all the reasons why we were friends with Kim, and why Kim will never leave our spirits or leave our hearts. I hope you enjoy this. Again, these are stories and memories from all sorts of people who loved her. So, this is for you, Kim. I really don't know what else to say. So, I guess let's just get on with let's start with some stories.
My name's Katrina Kettery.
My name's David Larson.
And we were just talking a few minutes ago, just kind of about just Kim loves. You know what? It's almost fair to say like just Kim's love of all things Japan and Japanese.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. That's one of the first things that I noticed about her. Or one of the first things that kind of brought us together. I used to watch anime. I'm not such an avid watcher anymore, but I met her when I was working at Meyer. We were both working at Meyer after she graduated from college, and I think one of the first things that we talked about was, obviously Power Rangers, because, it's Power Rangers. Huge fan. I was more of a Ninja Turtles girl myself. I was Raphael.
Yeah.
But I feel like they could have crossed paths, so.
Well, they did at one point. They did
Yeah.
in Space.
Absolutely, yeah. I think we did talk about that, so we.
Were you at Meyer? Were you working with her at Meyer? I remember her telling me a story of a Black Thursday shopper, like almost got so mad, like almost hitting her or pushing her.
I wasn't there for that, which I can't imagine someone wanting to push Kim because she was so tiny. But, she was so much larger than life, though, that she never seemed quite as small as she actually was. Like,
Yeah.
You never would know that she was, I could pick her up and throw her over my shoulder.
No, I know I did that once during a Halloween haunted house tour. It just was, you know what, I'm going to see if I can do it. Just ran up behind her, throwed her over my shoulder, and sure enough. And then I think she yelled faster horsey as I was doing it.
Yeah, that sounds like her. Yeah, we shared a lunch shift at Meyer. Like, she had the photo lab job, and I basically had, like, kind of a menial, like, whatever other teams don't want to do kind of job. So I didn't usually, I had a lot to do usually, but it was all kind of just abstract busyness. So I would just usually kind of occupy myself by, like, hanging out with her in the back room and hiding behind carts when we were trying not to do anything. And we would kind of just joke about Meyer and, all of its anybody who's worked there knows that it's probably one of the most illogical companies ever. And, Kim, she loved to, she was so good at spotting, anything. She was so smart, she could always figure out what was illogical about things. Nothing really ever escaped her attention, there are no details. Like, you could say anything to her and you knew she would understand. So that's what I kind of gravitated towards initially. I always felt like she was on the same level with me. She always laughed at my jokes, and, I don't know if she was just humoring me, but, yeah, and unfortunately, I have this talent for people around me. When I make friends with them, they usually move within about a year or so. But I mean, I was always very proud of her ambition. She was always such an inspiration to me, and we were so similar in that we were so focused on our careers. And I always kind of felt that that was another thing that we kind of shared. And of course, I supported her decision to chase her dream to Florida. I was very upset that it was so far away from me. But I remember the last night that we hung out together before she moved. We went bowling, and I don't know. I have a funny story about the bowling. Is it okay to be graphic?
Oh,
okay.
By all means.
Okay, cool. Well, see, Kim and I, as Trevor mentioned in the speech, Kim always joked about boobs, and during that particular game, we were all bowling terribly. It was going just horrible. It was awful. Like, we were all just bowling gutter balls one after another. And then I think Kim got knocked a couple of pins down or something, and she went to high-five me with both hands. She completely missed my hands and landed both hands full on right on my boobs. And she just gave me this look of just shock that kind of faded into a, hey, yeah, that wasn't an accident, just kind of winked at me. And then, funny story, the next 3 people who bowled all got strikes. So
Magic boobs.
Yeah, magic boobs. Yeah, I think that's exactly what we said, magic boobs. Good luck, boobs. And that night, after, she kind of jokingly said to me, like, hey, you want to come help me move to Florida? And, I was like, oh, no, I got to work the next couple, that's rude. I can't just drop everything and, help you move to Florida. That's crazy. And I called her up about 20 minutes after we left the bowling alley, and I said, hey, so what time are you leaving tomorrow? And I actually just called in sick to work the next 2 days. I actually forgot to call in sick the second day, so I almost got fired. But I didn't care. I know under any circumstance, Kim would have dropped everything to help me, as she did on many, many occasions. And I'm sure a lot of other people who will give you interviews will tell you Kim would have dropped anything to help anyone that she cared about. And that was just one of the amazing things. She was one of the very few people I've ever met that really understood what real friendship really, really means. And I would have absolutely done anything for her. And that included just dropping everything and, I will help you drive down to Florida with you. And it was a really fun trip. It was a lot of driving, and she and Levi were taking separate cars, and Levi had the U-Haul in the back of his truck, and unfortunately, the blinker didn't work on the U-Haul. They had two-way radio that they were trying to use to communicate back and forth between the cars when somebody was going to merge, or, there were cars coming, or so we didn't get separated. But what it basically ended up being like was about 3 solid days of this. And she's like, well, I don't understand what he said. Here, pull over, no, here. And I was so ready. I was just ready to throw that thing out the window. But she was so cute, though. You couldn't stay mad at her for more than a few seconds. Yeah. Just no matter what was going on. And it was so cute. Just watching them their dynamic together was just so funny. And we were in rush hour traffic in the middle of Atlanta, and she answered her cell phone while she was driving, and so she was trying to look at the sights in Atlanta. We were trying not to die on the road and trying to also follow Levi with the radio. So it was trying to weave in and out of traffic while she's trying to, I think, disconnect her cable service because, she was moving. And I'm like, Kim, oh my God, we're going to die. And so it's shh. No, I don't even live in Michigan anymore. I'm like, oh my God, we're going to die. Oh my God, there's the Cartoon Network building. she just always was like, oh my God, squirrel. And it was adorable. And I mean, it was terrifying at the time, but I mean, like, everything was fine. And it was just, like, the whole trip down was just one amazing, ridiculous thing after another. We stayed in a hotel where there was duct tape on all of the locks, and there was roach powder on the beds, and she's just clings to me, and she's like, just can you just hold me on top of you so I don't have to touch the bed, because this is just disgusting. I'm like, yeah, I'm on it. Yeah, I will protect you from the roach powder.
For me, like, I know when we were working together, we, during the morning show, we would just kind of sit and listen to the Scanners, and one time we both heard an assault in progress. Just, hear it, and then a couple of seconds later, Kim just looks at me and pounds and goes, I threw a rock at him! Now, one, I knew exactly what that reference was coming from.
Me too.
And two, at that exact moment, I went, oh, okay, I've got a new friend.
It was a really big rock.
Yeah. It was a big rock.
Yeah, Batman.
That's right. It's from Batman the Animated Series. And see, like, that's it. No prompting, no nothing of setup whatsoever. It was, she made the quote, I knew what the quote was, and just connected right in. Is there something similar that you have for that?
Well, I'd only known Kim for a year, but, like, I mean, we were talking about her being, like, larger than life, and she really was, and especially the last time I saw her, like, she had this big bag of, like, toys, and I was like, oh, what you got there? And she was like, oh, I got these Power Rangers toys, and she had, like, 30 of them, and it was awesome. It was so cool. And she was like, yeah, I'm gonna be auditioning to be the Pink Ranger. And I was like, oh, that's really cute. And she's like, oh no, I'm totally gonna be the Pink Ranger. And she had her little laser gun, and like she literally, like, she did like the little transformation dance thing, and like it was flawless. It was like, you could tell the thousands of hours that went into that, like just her practicing. And it was weird because, like, at that moment it was like she transcended, like, everything, it was like she wasn't just somebody that wanted to audition to be a Power Ranger. Like, she actually was like a Power Ranger for that, like, that brief moment. Like, she really was like the Pink Ranger. And she was a hero, and it was like, it was so weird. It was like, yeah, larger than life. It really was. And I only knew her a year. I really wish I could have known her longer. So yeah.
I don't know. I guess I don't know what I can say about Kim that I think everybody else can't. I mean, I didn't know her as long as, a lot of people did, but I don't think you really had to know Kim long, Like, just being around her for a few minutes, like, she was just such a genuine, amazing person that you couldn't help but love her. And I hope that for the rest of my life I can carry with me the things that she kind of imparted to me, and that was just, like, the ability to just be there for the people that I love no matter what, and just, she was so positive. Like, even if she was having the worst day, like, you could talk to her, and, she wouldn't just sit and complain about what was going on with her, or, like, I wouldn't want to sit and complain about what was going on with me, because the second that I started talking to her, nothing else mattered. Like, there was nothing else but the fun that we were having. And that's just so incredibly rare, and I hope that that's something that everybody who met her and knew her can take with them.
Don't leave me alone with Avi. He's scary.
I know, big bad me.
Becky Smith. So I'm sure you're gonna have a hard time with that. BECKY and SMITH.
And Becky, you're Kim's best friend.
Well, she had lots of best friends. I mean, you weren't friends with Kim and not being her best friend.
That's true.
How it was.
It's true. But however, every time I got to be around Kim, and you see, this is just wholly. Solely bad on my part. I got to hear about all the adventures of, Becky and I got to do this, Becky and I got to do that. And there was a part of me that's like, but fucking Becky. I wish I could get to do these things with her. God damn. You know. But when did you guys first meet?
Well, we were in middle school, and I had just moved up to Lakeview, and my first day in band, I had been playing the clarinet for a couple of years at my old school, but I moved up, and I don't want to call him Professor Gilbert. He's not a professor. It was high school, middle school. He's Mr. Gilbert, the band teacher at the time in the middle school, was like, well, take her in the back room and see what she knows, and we'll figure out what part she can be on. And she took me back there, and I played for her, and we just connected just like that. And she was like, you're amazing. And we just, from that very first day, I had a lunch table to sit at. I mean, when you're a kid coming into a new school, you're scared out of your mind. And she just was like, hey, come on over here. And from that day forward, we were together every single day, every day.
What were some of the things you guys bonded with early on?
Oh, God. Well, I don't know. I mean, we played the clarinet, so we got to hang out all the time in band. And I would go over to her house, and I always thought it was so cool how she had horses, and we would always go out and feed the horses and brush the horses, and we bonded over that. And so I was like her groom. She always rode, and I would like bring the saddles because she was too small to carry the giant Western saddle. So I'm just like got it on one hip, just walking around, and she's like, how the heck do you do that? And I'm like, it's because I'm big. And then at some point in like 8th grade or whatever, we were hanging out after school, and Toonami came on, and there was Sailor Moon, and from then on we were the Sailor Scouts, and I was the tall green Sailor Scout, and she was the short one with the blue hair, and we made our own little code and passed notes in classes, and we just spent all our time together. There's no way around it.
Can you remember like the most like heated discussion you guys have ever had? And one that was, you're on one side, she's on another, because I've had many debate over Kim about lots of things, and most of the time I would lose the argument. But that was just that. She knew what she knew her beliefs. She knew what she thought was right. She knew what she thought was wrong, and stood by those beliefs. And this didn't even matter. I mean, I think the biggest discussion and our argument we had was over who did Tommy marry in Power Rangers? Because I stuck with the canon, which is that, there's an episode where he and Kat get old. So it's like, well, that has to be it. In the end, he marries Kat. And she was like, no, it was started with Kimberly. It's going to end with Kimberly. It absolutely has to be. Everything else is just wrong. But can you remember like any sort of heated discussion there?
No, to be honest, most of the time I actually agreed with her. I think the most heated discussion we actually had was one day when we were at her mom's house, and we were making French fries, like just cutting up potatoes and making French fries, and I wanted to leave the skins on, and she didn't want them on there.
What's something that, being her best friend, and being very close? I mean, she was close with a lot of people. What is something about Kim that maybe some people didn't know about her?
I can't think of anything that anybody wouldn't know about Kim. I mean, I kissed her once, and we kind of kept that to a secret.
Well, there we go. Now we have to tell that story.
I don't know what it was. She was sitting on her toilet, and oh my God, she hated so much to have her eyebrows plucked, but she's like, I need them done. Please help me. And after every hair, she would just rub her forehead like, oh, it was the itchiest thing in the world. And I finally plucked the last hair, and I don't know why, but I bent down and kissed her. And I'm like, that was awkward. And she was like, yeah, that was awkward. And I don't think we ever told anybody. But that's all I can remember, really.
I plucked her eyebrows at ASUN last year. I didn't make out with her though. I'm actually a little sad about that. Yeah.
Well, the forehead thing, I all right. Here's one of my many stories. One time she was driving up, because she lived in Kalamazoo at the time, and the station's in Grand Rapids, so she was driving up at midnight, and she hit a deer. She hit a deer and swerved off to the side of the road. So at first she calls us and was like, I'm going to be late because I hit a deer, and me and the producer are like, okay, well, we'll see you when we see you, and hang up. A couple of minutes go by, and I start thinking, and I'm like, she didn't sound like she was the greatest just now. I probably should go down and see how she is. So it happened somewhere around Middleville, drove down, picked her up. And as you could tell, she was extremely miserable. Yeah. Mainly not just because the car went into the ditch, but she had spilled her Mountain Dew all over herself. So picked her up, and she was like, I gotta get a change of clothes. Go to Meijer. So we went to Meijer. It's 1 a.m, and she buys sweatpants and underwear meant for 10 to 12-year-olds. And I remember in that moment, just kind of in the checkout line, watching her, thinking, Kim's unique. So you drove her to work. We went to work, did the show, and then afterwards, kind of had to figure out how to get the car because it didn't get towed to where she needed it to be. It got towed to this place in Middleville. So I had a AAA card, which allowed my car to get towed wherever it wanted to, regardless of how many miles. So I called my AAA, trying to see, who could, at first we were just calling and saying, okay, if someone gets into a car accident, who can use my service? And they said, well, only the person whose name on it or someone closely related. So I was like, okay, thank you, hung up. A few minutes later, called back, said, hi, I had, my fiance got into an accident yesterday, and she needs her car towed. And the person on the other line said, oh, yeah, that's fine. Can we talk to her? And it was like, sure, hand the phone. And Kim's look on her face, it was that smile that you saw like the Joker have before, something devious is going to happen. So Kim's giving the information, and every so often the operator would be like, oh, you have such a good fiance for, calling. And she was like, yeah, he's a really great guy. And was just sarcastic every time I was being brought up. So the AAA service, got the car, drove it all the way down to Kalamazoo to the Ford dealership, and I think I was just somewhat like mentally exhausted or tired. I think I'd been up for 16 hours, and Kim, still perky Kim, because got the car down, and everything worked out well. And I just remember her having this big smile on her face and saying, and she was like, oh, thank you, Avi, I really appreciate your help. And I just was so tired that I went and I put my finger right on her forehead.
Oh, no.
And, of course, whenever you touch Kim on the forehead, she rubs it vigorously, almost like a rabbit cleaning itself, just like. So when you mention the forehead there, is that as soon as you kissed her, or is it?
Well, I don't know about when I kissed. She just looked at me like, what was that? But no, I mean, every time, every hair. It took an hour because every hair, just every hair.
What do you think was the girliest thing Kim loved and the least girliest thing Kim loved?
Girly things. I don't know, honestly. Sailor Moon was really darn girly, and My Little Ponies. Like lately she'd got really into My Little Ponies and Hello Kitty.
Yeah.
Oh my god. I was actually, it's funny because my coworker had My Little Ponies on her desk, and she decided she didn't want them anymore when we went under construction at my job. And she was like, here, do you want these? And I was like, heck yes, I'm going to send those to Kim. And I never got to send them to her. She would have loved them, but that was the really girly thing. And I don't know about not girly things. Riding is kind of girly. Video games.
Yeah.
Most girls do not play video games.
No.
I mean, it's more and more now, but like when we were younger, you were a girl, you did not play video games.
But she embraced video games wholeheartedly and had no problem.
She was a giant technomancer. Like, she was crazy techie. Like, I can't remember, one of the times that she came up here to visit, she had her laptop, and it was like the first time I'd ever seen one of those dongles that you can get like internet from the satellites, and I was like, whoa, what is this magic? But Kim had it. She had her phone, she had her laptop, she had everything, and it was all electronic, and yeah, internet in the car, yeah, going down the road, just typing.
Anything else you want to say?
God, I'm gonna miss carrying her around, I think, the most, because you know how small she was, and just ever since I met her, like in the middle school, it was 2 levels, and I can't remember what happened one year, but she like sprained her ankle. She was just as bad as her mom. Her mom was constantly breaking bones and all. I think she's broken every bone in her body.
I have a quote in my quote book from work of things people say that are extremely funny, and one of them is Kim going, I have this really funny story to tell. One time my mom broke her leg, ... Because
it happened like every month. But she had done something to her ankle or something, and I remembered it was just the coolest thing in the world if you got to ride on the elevator. And she had crutches, and she was like, I don't want to use my crutches today. So I threw my backpack on her back, and then I picked her up, and we got to ride in the elevator. I carried her around from class to class to class all day. And every time I saw her, it was like, Becky! And she would always just jump on my back, and I would just like, carry her around. I'm just going to miss that the most, because she's so tiny. Just like, beep, pick her right up. It's like she wasn't even there. Weightless. So small. I miss her.
I didn't give you a chance to talk, man. Do you want to say
Ben?
anything?
Well, I never really got to know Kim too much either. I mean, like, we're here, yes, no? Right here, as close as possible. Okay. Okay.
That's good.
No?
do that.
Okay, no, okay. But I met Kim, actually, when I moved to Michigan, which was kind of a crazy story by itself, but it's not about Kim, so we won't tell that story here. But, like, in the process of moving to Michigan, like, I've gotten into, like, a bad place with my father for a little while there, and so I was generally in a pretty shitty mood, and it's like, hi, my name is Kim, and it was like 3 days or something down there in Kalamazoo, just hanging out. Like, she really like lifted my mood, and just being around her because she was so ecstatic about everything, sort of thing, just really kind of really positive experience there.
She was always a real, just the positive energy that Kim always had, you know. And that's, I mean, you know, we all have our down days, but even with her down days, she would try to find something, you know, she would go out of her way. It's like, I'm having a bad mood, so I'm going to go and watch Power Rangers for 2 hours.
The true definition of optimist. Yeah. Glass is always full. Always. 100%. No matter what. Even if somebody just peed in it. You know, it's still full, I mean.
At least the glass is full. Full is full.
Yeah, full is full.
Tony Collardo. So I had the pleasure of knowing him in college. We were on the forensics team together. We did a lot of competitive speech and all that kind of fun stuff. Well, after college, we kind of lost touch for a year while we're all trying to figure out what the hell we're going to do with our lives. So eventually, I made my way to Chicago. The job moved me down to Orlando. And lo and behold, who do I find out lives in Orlando? Kim and Levi. So already was good friends with them before. We rekindled our friendship. Luckily, my office had a Miami office, so I would drive down there and I would get to see them when I was coming back up to Orlando. So when I stopped at their place coming back from Miami, I would usually stay there just for maybe 2 or 3 hours and just be. Kim would always be watching some kind of anime, something. There was something Sailor Moon or something Power Rangers or Super Sentai or something on the screen all the time. So, anyways, I have an office in Chicago, and about 2 months ago, I was up in our Chicago office working, and my work ended a little earlier than expected. Well, I find out on Facebook that Kim and Levi are in Chicago for another one of their geek conventions. And of course, being a fellow nerd as I am, I decided, might as well spend the day, go out and find them. So I take the Blue Line all the way out to their hotel in north and west parts of Chicago. And knowing I didn't have but maybe an hour before I had to go to the airport to leave, I show up at their hotel and I sit down in a chair. Got a big hug from Kim, big hug from Levi when I showed up. So, sitting in this chair, there's some kind of history documentary on the television, and in the end, Kim is sitting here in a chair shivering, and those of you who know Kim best know that she was always cold. So I mentioned, actually, I think it's kind of warm in here. She says, you're warm? I say, yeah. She's like, I'm going to come sit on you, and runs over, jumps in my lap. Now, first of all, Levi and I are very good friends and trust each other. Kim jumps in my lap and just starts curling up into a ball in my lap, and I just got to hold her for an hour. So I sat there for an hour with a Kim in my lap, absorbing my heat because apparently I'm a human furnace. So I sat for an hour. I got to talk with them and spend time. And that was the highlight of my trip right there. Eventually my hour ran up. I had to leave, hop on the train, and go back to Orlando. That is the final time I saw Kim in person, but we converse on Facebook every day after that. And I'm going to miss her very much. And those of you who know her best know that she doesn't want a bunch of people crying in a circle for her. She would want a bunch of people around a circle in front of a television watching Gokaiger.
Jeff Waldorf. I met Kim, I knew her back in high school, actually middle school. I met her first in gym class. And what happened is that she had gotten one of her friends to go and ask me out. You know,
Really?
yeah. She was actually my very, very first girlfriend. And, you know, I had the pleasure of dating her for the summer and became friends with her afterwards. And one thing that I can say that everybody has said, and I will reinforce it, she had energy. My goodness, she had so much energy, I was jealous. I was like, give some of that to me. I don't know what you're on, but I want it. So I remember sometimes that she had, we had went to 4-H fair together at one time. She had her horses there and everything. And she dragged me through the mirror maze. And that also had a clear room, and of course, the guy goes first. And she's got, you know, she's pushing me through this maze, and I'm hitting every corner imaginable. I'm like, oh, just bashing my head. She's like, you're almost through. I'm like, I'm never going through the mirror maze again. But it was so much fun. She was always so much fun to be around, and always happy, always positive. I remember one time we had been, her and I, we enjoyed video games too. So that's definitely one thing we had in common. And we were playing GoldenEye 007 together. And it was like where you could get 4 players, you know. And so it was me, her, and Becky. And I got the golden gun, and I was shooting her. And, you know, and Becky was getting so mad because she said, you're supposed to let the girl win. And I'm like, not in my world. But she would get me back. So it was one thing that we definitely enjoyed doing together is video games. And, you know, there's just so much about her that was just absolutely special.
Can you talk more about the 4-H and the country stuff? Because I got to know Kim kind of more on the, you know, as if like she had grown up in a city, you know,
Right.
talking about, you know, Japanese stuff and,
Right.
and video games and so forth that I had forgotten until she said, I want to go to a country fair, that she had grown out in the country and had horses and so forth. I mean, what were some of her loves, you know, in the country and in nature?
Well, she definitely loved the outdoors. And she definitely loved, like, vegetables. I mean, you know, she loved being outside. I remember being in her house and seeing her horses. She loved her horses. She loved riding them around. She had a little pen back there where her horses were at, and she always enjoyed, you know, showing them off. She was just really good to animals. She always had animals around, you know, cats and everything. And she was just the sweetest kind of person when it came to animals. Oh, I'm getting attacked.
Bug just flew by. I mean, that's the thing. We're outside here, and
That was a big one.
it's you know, but that, I mean, you know, she loved the. I mean, well, we went to the fair. We went to the fair. I mean, it was so weird. It was almost like going to the fair with like a 5-year-old because
Oh,
she would be
everywhere.
she'd be like, look at the baby chicks, look at the duckies. You know, she just had this wide-eyed love of seeing all the farm animals.
And you know, especially if you were with her, if you were lucky enough to be with her, I should say, she would drag you everywhere, and always want you to say, come check this out, this is so cool. She always had that just that spark, you know. She would get you interested in things, And she would bring you everywhere to share that interest, and had so much energy that it rubbed off on you. And suddenly you became interested in it. And and so you're just going everywhere and you're seeing everything. And, she's right there with you. She is showing, one thing that she always did is she always showed you the world. It was just amazing. She was amazing. All I have to say is she was just a great person, and she's going to be missed. I mean, she already is missed, and she's kind of like, her life ripples through everybody, and everybody around you always has a fond memory of her and has always been touched by her life. And, nobody could ever forget somebody like that. This is the one person that really monumentally touches your life, and you will not forget.
Cool. Thanks, man.
Trevor Mueller. So I met Kim back when she was in college over at Western Michigan University while working at Best Buy. And I was stocking the anime section. Kim comes up to me and she's just kind of like, my favorite anime is Sailor Moon. And I'm like, there's some Sailor Moon over there if you want to go buy some. And she's like, oh, no, I just applied here. I'm going to be an employee. And her and I just started hitting it off and chit-chatting about Sailor Moon and whatnot. And spent hours talking, much to the dismay, I'm sure, of my supervisor, and found out she was a really cool cat, so decided to pull some strings and get her hired in. I don't know if there's another story you want me to tell.
Well, tell all of them.
Yeah. So Kim, Levi, and I ended up becoming really fast friends, and ended up spending most of our time actually hanging out in the hot tub of their apartment complex while our hands were getting pruny, spending way too much time in that hot tub. And I don't remember what we were talking about all the time in there, just, probably just enjoying the warmth and relaxation. But there was one particular instance where, Kim and I were chit-chatting, and one of her other complex cohabitants came in and was sitting with us, and Kim immediately decided that she needed to ask them their opinion on which was better, Sailor Moon dubbed or the unedited Japanese version with the original Japanese language and subtitles. And suffice it to say, that person did not hang out with us in the hot tub for very long.
Now was she had a position. She took a stand. I'm going to go with the original Raw because, Kim really loved, the Japanese culture and didn't like it when, you try to Americanize something from Japan.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was uncut. It had different music. It had, different sequences in it. So, yes, the original Japanese version was the one that she loved. So... wedding. Eventually, Kim and Levi ended up inviting me to be a part of their wedding, and during the rehearsal, they ended up sticking me on the very far end of the groomsmen. And while the preacher was going through his, his normal sayings, blah 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 blah, if anyone should object to these two people getting together, may they speak now or forever hold their peace. And being the bold jerk that I am, I snapped my fingers, and I'm like, right here, I got an objection. And everyone just kind of looks over at me, and, I don't even remember what the objection was. It was something along the lines of Levi and I professing our undying love for each other and moving away to South Florida or something, which the two of them ended up doing. And everyone's just staring at me just like, really? I'm like, fine, they can get married. So the next day, during the actual wedding, preacher's going through his normal thing, and he's just kind of like, blah, 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 blah. If anyone here objects to these two being wed, may they speak now or forever hold their peace. And the entire wedding party turns and looks in my direction. And I, to this day, imagine that Kim orchestrated this thing, because that's just the kind of thing Kim would do. So, just to spite me. And then the last one would be the ASIN story. So, in college, Kim wanted to share her love of anime with me on a whole new level, and decided to take me to Anime Central, or ASIN, which is one of her favorite conventions, and it's actually the third largest animation convention in the country.
Really?
25,000 people this last year. Mm-hmm. And So Kim just wanted to go there and see a bunch of artists and eat Pocky and drink Mountain Dew and stay up all night in the hotel room. And what she ended up doing, what she didn't realize she'd done, was reintroduce me to a whole new level of storytelling and invigorate me and inspire me to basically go out and try doing the comic book thing professionally. Because I've been doing comic books since I was old enough to hold a pencil, and doing them professionally for the last 10 years on the web. And it wasn't until I ended up going to that show that I ended up, just really, really wanting to make a comic book, sell it at a show, be a guest there, talk in some of these panels, give advice to people who, didn't know how to solve a problem or, go over a storytelling conundrum. And continuing to go to ASIN years later, would end up meeting a whole bunch of my friends who are comic book professionals that have written Batman for DC or Strawberry Shortcake or all of these other really big kind of children's titles, who encouraged me to do the work. And, I now tour the nation doing comic book conventions, meeting these people, and essentially all this just ties back to the fact that Kim wanted to have some Pocky and share some Mountain Dew in a hotel room one day. So, which was really sweet of her, and that's that's kind of the profound, lasting effect that she's going to have on my life forever.
Can you tell the story about the best birthday present she ever got?
Best birthday present? Was that the
Yes.
20? Okay. When she was 21?
No, the one this past birthday.
Oh, sorry, that was a different story. There's also a story
You know what?
when she was
Let's start
turning
with that one.
when she was
Let's
turning
hear this 21 because I said that until the first one.
not as inspiring, but I'll tell them both. So her 21st birthday, Kim loves Mountain Dew so much, her mom went out and bought her 21 2-liters of Mountain Dew. So that's not the scary thing, right? The scary thing is that she drank it in a week.
Nice.
That girl was so caffeinated. She ended up beating Legend of Zelda for the N64 and Majora's Mask in the same weekend.
Nice.
So, ASIN weekend. And Kim had spent the better part of the earlier part of the year watching every single season of Power Rangers. Loved the show. There's like 34 seasons, I just found out, actually. I was way off when I said 13.
There's the original Japanese Sentai. In America, it's been going constantly except for 1 year since '93. So that's about 13.
So I wasn't wrong.
No, yeah, you were. See, this is great. This is exactly the thing Kim would want us to do. Making sure we're factually correct about the history of Power Rangers.
There you go. So, yeah, so 13 seasons she ends up watching over the span of like 3 months, and was coming to the show in April. And Johnny Young Bosch was going to be there, who played Adam, the Black Power Ranger from the movie and Turbo.
He was part of the second, third season, Zeo. And the first movie.
Yep.
First half of Turbo.
Yep. Okay.
See, this is a great thing about Kim is Kim and I can have we'd always talk about canon and make sure that everything factually was right and the storylines were good.
Zeo's about the time I stopped watching Power Rangers, but I watched the movies. So like I saw the Turbo movie, and that was about it. But anyway, so I've met Johnny like a couple of times actually at conventions and stuff, and so he's doing voice acting now, and he is also the lead singer in this band called I Shine. Yeah. And so Kim was really excited to meet him and really wanted to get his autograph and buy a CD, and ended up going to one of his panels, and somebody told Johnny that it was her birthday, and so he decided to actually sing her happy birthday with the band in the panel. And the video is online, like it's on her Facebook page. Somebody tagged her in it. Really, really sweet. So, and I've told Johnny about it, and I have yet to get a response from him, but Johnny's just such a sweet guy. It was so great that he could do that.
Birthday song. Oh, the original birthday song. Kim. Her name is Kim. Kim? Kim. 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 Yeah. Not Ken, Kim. That's kind of a douchey guy name from the 80s. It's like the jock that the girl's going out with. Cam. Okay. I'm excited. Not gonna lie. We don't rehearse this. Let's make it easy. How about... He's got to get a drink first. Yay!
How old you are. I once knew another Kim. She also wore pink. Kinda cool sometimes. So that she had a close up. Did I just say that? Songs for you, Kim. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday. I hope you have a great day. A wonderful day. Turning 17.
That works.
Enjoy this day. Oh, I can think that I get wiser with age, but I don't. So you probably don't either. Happy birthday anyway, dear Kim.
Yay!
Don't forget this day, this moment, or anything that I say.
Yay!
You talked about how Kim inspired you to go into. It's fair to say you love. This is not just a job. This is something you love doing.
Yes, absolutely.
And do you think you would have been doing it if not for her encouragement?
Possibly. Nowhere near in the same capacity that I was doing it. Like, I was already doing it on the web. I was doing a webcomic series. It wasn't until I ended up meeting two buddies of mine, Josh Elder and Russell Lissau, over at Anime Central years later, who inspired me to actually do the work to get published, to publish myself. And do the work is kind of the phrase that they end up having out there. And I've since coined another one, which is, I don't want to hear about your story. I want to read your story, which is my way of saying, do the work, go out there and make your story. And it wasn't until they gave me this encouragement that I actually went out and did the work, that I actually made a comic book. And that very same year, I started being a guest at all these different conventions. I'd been speaking at some of these conventions, like previously, just on panels and stuff, but you don't really have any credibility until you got a physical product in your hand to sit there and say, like, yes, I actually know what I'm talking about, and here it is, I've made it myself. So I ended up, just making the book, and just have had books and books and books coming out ever since then. And again, it all just stems back. Like, I wouldn't have gone to ASIN and met Josh and Russ if Kim had never taken me there back in like 2004. So yeah, totally inspired by her.
I got a weird like 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon connection here for you. Okay. Writing comic books. There's a guy called Louis Lovehog, a.k.a. Linkara, who reviews old comic books.
Yeah, I'm friends with Doug Walker.
Oh, really?
I was at his wedding last night.
No kidding.
Yeah.
I just read about that this morning.
Yeah, I was one of the 4 people that was tweeting that guy with the ring.
Ah! Wow. What a small... Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I've not met Linkara, but I'm familiar with him.
This is, I'm go on a side tangent here, what I was earlier saying. It's amazing the people that Kim knew, and that would, it's just something where you would see Kim and you would just kind of see her positive energy and her enjoyment of these things that, you just kind of take a note at. You're almost like, it's not something you see every day. Mm-hmm. And all of us here, it's like, I want to know her more. I want to be friends with her.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. No, Kim had this infectious personality that was all about high energy, goofy silliness. I call it squishy silliness, right? Like, I mean, all the things that Kim loved, I think the thing that she loved most was laughing with other people. Like, she loved, the enjoyment that she got from laughter, and she was always looking for ways to make people laugh. And that's one of the special things that she has. So,
To get back to the earlier analogy I was making.
Yep.
Linkara, again, he reviews comic books, but he also does a series called The History of Power Rangers, where he watches every single episode of a season, and then kind of talks about the season and what the themes were and what he liked, what he didn't like. And this isn't just sort of like a 10-minute web video. This is someone who's almost like writing a paper about it and making notes and pointing out style changes from one season to the next and tone. And the last time I got to see Kim, it was I saw these videos and I loved them, and I was like, we gotta sit and watch one of these. I gotta show you this. And this was the excitement that Kim usually has for her, for like if she wanted to talk about Sailor Moon. I had with this video. It was like, I really got to show this to you. I really think you're really going to like it. And then she did, and we talked like an hour and a half over what the analogy that he stated. Mm-hmm. I guess just as I was saying earlier, just these connections I never would think I'd ever be able to see, but they've all come together because of Kim. Mm-hmm. And really just, you could just say, the power of Kim.
Yeah, the power of Kim. I like it.
What do you think is going to be your lasting memory of Kim?
Her legacy is definitely the comic book thing. What I'm going to remember forever is just those hours that we ended up spending in that hot tub, pruning our hands and just hanging out, because it was usually always followed by going over to her place and playing some video games or watching a movie or something like that. When Serenity came out, her and I saw that thing like 6 times. Crazy stuff. So, I'm just always going to remember the positive energy, the way that she made me feel when she was coming over, the fact that it doesn't matter what kind of mood I was in. When Kim came into the room, like, all my worries were gone, because I'm hanging out with Kim. And Kim just had this infectious way of just making all your problems disappear and just grabbing hold of that silly, bubbly goofiness that she had in her and just letting that take you on a wild, crazy ride, and you have no idea where the heck you're going to end up. But you're going to have fun getting there.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Talking with Blair Curdy, photojournalist for Wood TV, and worked with Kim for about 6 months, right?
It was actually quite a while, I think. I'm not certain if it was 6 months or not.
Well, she was here for an internship, and then started working here.
Yeah, and then she interned for a while, and then she worked at the desk. That's why I remember a lot of the desk part and all of her funny quirks and fun attitude and atmosphere that she brought to the newsroom.
What were some of her quirks?
I love the way she talked because it was very matter-of-fact humor, dry humor a little bit, and her eyebrows would go up and arch up when she spoke, and she just had such a great attitude about everything. You couldn't quell that happiness of her spirit, she just was always happy, and she would talk to you about the nerdiest stuff. Like, I could dig back in time to my D&D days, and she would know far too much about that stuff. But it was crushing pretty much to hear the news, But it makes you remember the good things, and that's what you cling to,
When she was on the desk, and you guys kind of talked about the assignments for the day, like how much of actual work were you guys able to talk about?
She was a worker, but she wanted to make work fun, I think. I think she was just learning the biz, stuff like that. So it's a hard thing to do, listening to that scanner and deciphering what's good and what's bad. And sometimes us photogs can be pretty harsh on the desk, saying, what is this? Is this news or not, So, but she was always so sweet. I remember the Brad Edwards days. That's when she was around, and she...
Brad Edwards, a reporter right now in Chicago, but very known for his writing and his style. He's got a very style all of his own. And if you ever just look up one of his reports, you'll know exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah, and he just had nicknames for everybody. So I remember we had Bebop and Rocksteady for a couple other interns at the time, but hers was specific. It was Kimmy Gibbler. And it was such a sweet nickname because it was actually, very, very right on in some ways. In some ways not, you know what I mean? Because, she was the kind of girl you wanted to have around, you know what I mean? She was fun and down to earth, and, nothing was too nerdy for Kim and nothing was too cool for Kim. She was up for anything, so.
I remember that one of the things she had to do at times was turn Brad stories into web stories. And there were times like, the way that Brad writes, is it's for the visual of television and very, in the style of a television report. So to turn that into just a web story and into just words, very hard. But Kim was able to do that. Frustrated her at times, but she could do it. She took on that challenge.
I think it's very hard to dull down somebody's creativity, and everything. But and that's one of the things you're trained to do when you write for the web a little. You can write a good web story, but I do know that she was a stickler for details. She liked the details. She liked all that stuff, and it's been a while. But you keep up with people on Facebook and see how they're doing, and she seems so happy. I remember the biggest thing I remember about Kim was her love for her husband. I have to tell you the honest to God truth. I've heard more about Levi than I care to ever have known. But she loved him so much, and I think if any man had that just for a portion of their life, even such a brief time as Kim had with him, I think they were lucky. So I think he knows that. It's just. I think it's sad for us to know that, she won't be shining here with us right now. But I think it's a safe bet to know that she's shining elsewhere. And hopefully we'll see her again,
Yeah, this is Mark Thompson, news reporter, anchor for Wood TV in Grand Rapids, Michigan. One of the memories that I have of Kim is when she worked with us as an intern. And one of the first stories that she went out on with me was there was a man, an elderly gentleman who had Alzheimer's or something like that, or dementia. And he had walked away from a nursing home, and he had walked several miles, and he ended up in Trufant, which was the town that she was from. So from there, we started to talk about Trufant, which is a small town in Michigan, and we would laugh about that and all the people back there. And she had so many fun and interesting stories from that town that was something that we kind of bonded over. Even when she moved to the big metropolitan jewel of the Gulf of Mexico, Miami, Florida, we would still reminisce about days in Michigan and Trufant. So that was one of the best memories that I had. And myself, along with another news reporter here at the time, Brad Edwards, who now works in Chicago, one thing that we were talking about was that Kim, even when she was an intern and then started working here, a lot of interns come and go, but she was someone who was memorable that you didn't forget. She had so many different stories and a personality that, went from so many different extremes, from the nerdy gamer to somebody who just liked to really hang out and joke, but was also serious about her work and writing and the news business. So those are all the fond memories that I will have of Kim, and she will be dearly missed.
This is Kim's friend Dave. It was a coworker of ours at Wood, the TV station, Evan. He first told me that he overheard one of the news interns in the Woodland room, which is our break room, talking about Dance Dance Revolution, and he knew that I played that quite a bit. he said that we should probably meet and talk about whatever it is that nerds talk about. Now, at this point, I had only been in Grand Rapids for about a year, and so I had nobody to talk to as far as video games and anime and all that sort of stuff. And so I figured, hey, I should definitely meet this girl. And when I first met Kim, I learned that not only did we have the same taste in video games, but also in anime. And so it was just super great, and I knew that I had found a friend for life. Later on, she invited me over for a night of gaming and anime watching and whatnot with her and her husband Levi, and I was super excited. But then on the drive over, I started to worry, as I had never met her husband. How was he going to feel about some guy from work coming over to play video games and watch anime? But Levi was nothing short of great, awesome guy. And he might have actually been the one to suggest breaking out the Pocky. I had never had Pocky before, but I was absolutely hooked after one box. And we played, what did we play? We played WarioWare, Bungee Buddy. Kim turned me on to Twilight Princess, Legend of Zelda for the Wii. And we ate Pocky just about the whole time. Probably went through like 4 or 5 boxes. I tried to pay Kim back. Tried to give her money. I think I tried to give her like a 5 or a 10 because I had ate so much of their Pocky, and she wouldn't take it. But Kim and Levi, just absolutely awesome. And there's still times, I'll read about some new anime coming out or like a new video game coming out. My brain will immediately jump to, I gotta call Kim. I gotta see, if she's played this yet or if she's heard of it. What she knows, and then I, have to remember. Oh wait. She's not with us anymore, and it's a lot more of a bummer than I thought it would be. But so that's my story, and I miss Kim a lot, as I'm sure a lot of us do. That's it. Thanks for listening, guys.
Patrick, Marshall. I always said brother and sister.
Because you guys were that close.
Yes. I have a biological sister that never got along, never liked each other. Haven't lived with her since maybe 4th grade or so. And so, sorry.
No, it's okay.
So I have a biological sister, but I had never related to her. But Kim, very much a sister to me. And,
tell me about that sort of, I guess, that chemistry you guys had, with each other, sort of connect, like what was the thing that you loved about Kim most?
Well, I don't know if you got Trevor's recording, but it was very good about Kim. She was a ball of energy. She rarely had dark moments, and even then, she bounced back from them almost immediately. When I'm in the Army, and I've gone off for training a couple times, and my wife and I lived in the apartment right next to Kim and Levi, and then while I was gone, they basically adopted my wife. About Chelsea had just moved to the city, Kalamazoo, and she didn't really know anyone else, and so they basically grabbed her up and started taking her out and doing stuff. Got her out and around while I was gone.
When growing up with,
sorry, forget to bring the mic over to me.
Yeah.
When growing up with Kim, brothers and sisters, that you have that, just that sort of connection of, I've got your back, you've got mine. We're always looking out for each other. Do you remember a time when, either Kim was really stood up for you, or Kim was maybe having a hard time and you had her back?
Oh yeah, there's a couple times. Maybe the first time was when Kim was having a very difficult, messy breakup with the boyfriend prior to Levi.
Yeah.
She was taking it very rough and very bad, and she would just come and talk to me for hours at a time. They just like sit and, she'd use me as a sounding board to kind of sort out her own feelings on the matter. So I was playing junior psychologist, essentially. And then later on, when I was living with Kim and Levi and a friend of ours named Dan, when I first got engaged to my wife, and they're like, "You're getting engaged? Like, you cannot get engaged to a girl we've never met before." And so they steadfastly refused to support my marriage until they met my future wife, and then they're like, "Absolutely marry this girl now. Do not let her get away. She's perfect for you." And so it was a good dynamic that, because we didn't have the young sibling type fighting ever. How kids of like 7 and 8 and that age, brothers and sisters, usually don't get along.
Yeah.
We didn't meet until we were both 12 and 13-ish. And so we had kind of calmed down from the whole fighting stage. And so we got along very well, basically from the onset.
Was it awkward at first, or were you guys pretty? You knew you guys had a connection right away?
No, well, by the time it kind of evolved into a brother and sister thing, it wasn't awkward at all, because we had been friends from 6th grade till about 10th grade. We were just regular friends. And then when I started having family troubles and I didn't go home a whole lot, her house basically became a second home for me, and it was a safe place I could go where I didn't have to deal with all my problems at home. And so from then it kind of grew into a brother and sisterly thing until my mom took off and I literally had nowhere else to go. And Dee and Kim didn't hesitate at all. They grabbed me up immediately, said, "You're coming with us," which was great.
The thing, I mean, it was weird because I kind of have a sort of I get down on myself pretty easily, and I get kind of in a dark place, and it was almost like Kim had Kim had the antidote to that, and that was just, if there are things that you love, embrace the things you love. Mm-hmm. She had no qualms at all about talking about her love of Sailor Moon, of video games, of Power Rangers, and it's so. I really kicked myself in the fact that it wasn't until now that I really start thinking about that, about just love what you love. If you love it, embrace it. Don't be ashamed of it. Don't be like, yeah, I know it's a kid's thing, Power Rangers, but just love it. She had no shame whatsoever of it, and I think that's one of the greatest memories of her. What was there something of yours? Maybe not even be something that you and Kim liked together, but because you saw her love of the things that she enjoyed, that you took on that attitude as well.
Well, I can't think of any specific category or thing, but Kim definitely was her own person. I mean, she maybe even literally had a list of things that she liked and her attributes that she liked about herself, and that was her. And she didn't let anyone else influence her on that. She didn't let anyone else try to talk down to her or change her. She was her person, and she had a bubbling, radiant energy about her, where she'd come bouncing in and say, "Hey, how you doing? What's up?" And she, every so often she'd be angry at something, but it was very transient, and it was never, she never had a problem that just stuck with her and chewed on her for any length of time. She was always like, "Well, that's a problem, but I either can't do anything about it, so accept it, or I can change it, so I'm going to," or whatever her resolution was, she moved on. And I admired that about her, because she always wanted to be in some sort of news media type thing. Yeah. Growing up in backwoods Michigan, no one thinks "Oh, I'm going to be a TV anchor, or I'm going to be in news, or I'm going to be something awesome." But that was her goal for I don't know how many years. And no matter if she had setbacks, she didn't get a scholarship, or she didn't get a job opportunity that she wanted, she's like, "You know what, this is what I want to do, and I am still working. I'm going to work at it." She moved to Florida to do it after time with Wood TV. She had her goal, and she was working towards it. and that was very impressive to me.
What's going to be your, if I just say Kimberly, what do you think is going to be the first memory that pops into your head?
Her smiley face. She would be probably walking into the apartment. This was after I moved into neighboring apartment with my wife, and she'd probably be like knocking on the door, walking in. She'd be in some sort of hoodie with some blue sweatpants and her hair in a ponytail. That was her general. Whenever she wasn't going out or doing anything, that's she made herself up like that. And she'd come bouncing in, very bubbly, excited about something. It doesn't matter what, and she'd be smiling and wanting to share something with me. And that would probably be always my first, recollection of, Kim Chapin. And boom, that's what I see. And then, maybe if we're talking about something else, then we'll branch off. But, I can't tell you the number of times that she came over to our apartment and wanted to do something, or wanted to go watch TV together, or wanted to do, any number of things. She even dragged my wife and grudgingly starting to like video gaming. Hasn't really taken root, but the flame's there, the ember is there, and I'm still trying to fan, but not quite yet there.
Anything else you want to say?
No, I was I have a regret, is that after we both graduated, she graduated a semester before I did. She moved, and then I went off to do the Army thing. I definitely regret that we didn't stay closer, because I got busy, she got busy, I started a family, so I started having kids, and then the Army thing itself kept me, bouncing off the walls about stuff I have to do, and I never really stopped to look at some of the relationships, not just with her, but with the rest of my family, my extended family, that I've just neglected due to, I'm busy, it'll be time later, some other time. Yeah. And when Lisa called me that day, I was actually, I was waiting for my wife to have our last child. And, so everything's going well. I was like, I think inside, things are good. My career is going great places. I'm doing things I want to do. My family's great, wife's great, kids great, everything's great. And then Lisa calls, and suddenly things are not so great. Yeah. And it's just flipping a switch, go from well-lit room to darkness. Yeah. And it's forced me over the last couple of weeks to try to reevaluate what I think about my life and what I think about my relationships with the people in my life. And I need to recultivate some things that have grown fallow over the last few years.
Especially with that, I realized exactly that I wish we had talked more. I wish we had, more conversations. A silver lining, unfortunately, to the sadness has been I've reached out to people I haven't talked to in years, and I've heard back from a few people and said, again, being sometimes a dark person, I think, well, they clearly didn't like me, and they just never wanted to just talk to me ever again. And talking to these people again, who I haven't talked to in years, they've said, no, you just lose track of people, and you gets kind of frustrated. It's like, man, I wish I was still talking to them. But just being able to taking that first step and talking to them, and also the last conversation I had with Kim was on my 30th birthday. I was sick in bed. I was miserable because I had to cancel all plans I had for my birthday. I was feeling really, really shitty. And Kim was at work, but we spent 3 hours texting each other back and forth. And she helped cheer me up out of this sort of depression I was in over my birthday. And yeah, just how she was able, you're absolutely right, that smile. I'll always remember that smile, man. Thanks so much.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
Hi folks, Avi Forstein here. As I sit here trying to think of how I want to say goodbye to Kim, I realize that if I said everything I wanted to say, this speech would be over 5 hours long. Every Kim story I think of leads me to another story. Every photograph I look at reminds me of another memory I had almost forgotten. There are so many things I want to express to those who knew and loved Kim, and I want to make sure they can share in all the great memories I have. But in a way, every single person in Kimberly's life has these same memories. The names, places, and dates are different, but the spirit and the main focus of the memory is similar, if not exactly the same. One of my favorite memories of Kim is driving around Grand Rapids on a Monday night in October 2006. We had just come back from touring a haunted maze, and the song Candyman by the music group Aqua came on my iPod, and Kim and I started singing along. For those of you who don't know the band, Aqua is a Danish pop group that had the hit Barbie Girl. I'd been an Aqua fan since my days in high school, but this was the first time I had met someone who not only knew the band, but knew one of their less popular songs. We sang Aqua, Weird Al, Disney and Power Rangers songs all the way back to Kalamazoo. I have rarely been able to share so many songs on my iPod with anybody, but for the first time that night, I could admit my love of Danish pop songs and my enjoyment of their corniness with someone whose enjoyment was just as strong. In the past, I was embarrassed and was made fun of for liking this style of pop music. But Kim showed me through her enthusiasm and joy that enjoying what I loved was nothing to be ashamed of. When I was around Kim, I could talk about my love of Power Rangers, game shows, Fox Kids programming, Weird Al, and so much more. In a way, Kim helped bring the proud geek out of me. I worked with Kim for several months at Wood TV8, and she showed everyone there who she was and how great she was at her job. Kim was a solid writer and producer, and a solid source of saying hilarious things. I keep a list of some of the funniest things said at the station during moments of anger, frustration, hilarity, or sudden chaos. Kim had said things like, quote, "This is a really funny story. My mother's in a walker because she broke her kneecap," end quote. And of course, quote, "What's that? I'm not able to multitask. Oh, that's right. I have boobs," end quote. Working with Kim was always enjoyable and fun, even during the busy breaking news days. Working together at 1 a.m. on New Year's Day in 2007 will always be a day I'll never forget. But for me, Kim's crowning achievement at the station was working the assignment desk on December 26th, 2006. It was a pretty simple night news-wise, but for me it was more memorable because it was my second date with my girlfriend Leslie. I was supposed to edit the morning show the next day, so I called Kim that evening and said I would be late coming in because of the date. But if she really needed to, she could call me if news was breaking and they needed me to come in early. So here I was on a date, and around 11:20 p.m., Kim calls me. I answer the phone and she says, "Ford's dead. Get in now." Now, I start to think that Kim's joking with me because she knows I'm on a date. So I ask the waitress to turn one of the TVs to Channel 8, and I see our Gerald Ford obituary story airing on TV. I threw cash on the table, grabbed my date, and we raced to work. It was Kim's job that evening to inform everyone of the newsroom of President Ford's passing and to get them into the newsroom ASAP. Not an easy task at 11:30 p.m. a few days after Christmas. But she handled it very well, manned the phones during the beginning hours of coverage, and during the funeral coverage, helped producers write many, many President Ford-related scripts. Wood TV8 won an Emmy for their President Ford funeral coverage. There was a contest in the newsroom to see where you could have your picture taken with the Emmy. Though Kim had left the station by then to take a job in Florida, I knew she deserved that Emmy as much as anyone. When she came back to Michigan, we made sure she got her picture with the Emmy in the style she wanted it. She decided to take the Emmy to John Ball Zoo and took her photos with the Emmy next to the waterfalls, near a parrot, and holding it while riding a camel. The moments were truly Kim. I'll never forget you, Kim. You were one of my closest and dearest friends. You were one of the few people in my life who allowed me to be the real me, the uncensored me. I was able to talk with you about a lot of things that I couldn't say to someone without fear of them thinking I was crazy, creepy, or both. I lost plenty of friends because of me being a loud, obnoxious geek who loved all sorts of TV and telling offensive jokes. But you didn't leave. You stuck by me, and the more of my true self I showed, the more you accepted me as a close friend. You became my dear friend months after I had gone through a horrible experience in my life, where I had people who I thought were my friends abandon me when the chips were down. I went into a dark depression and wasn't very friendly or nice to new people I met for quite a while. When I met new people, I was cynical and suspicious, not very trustworthy. But when I met you, Kim, all that anger and bitterness from my past started to go away. You allowed me to be me. And no matter what I liked, no matter what filthy joke I said, no matter what outrageous opinion I had, you were always there to laugh, listen, and understand. The last time Kim and I talked, it was on my 30th birthday. I was miserable because I had bronchitis and I was beating up on myself. So I texted her, and we started texting each other back and forth for the next several hours. Well, she was supposed to be producing a morning show, but it didn't matter to her. She put my feelings and worries ahead of the show and texted me for hours, making me feel special and better during a time I wasn't at all in a happy mood. Kim cheered me up when I needed it. She was there for me when I needed a close friend. There's a part of me that feels horrible that I'll never be able to repay Kim for all the kindness and support that she showed me throughout our friendship. But I know that feeling bad is the last thing Kim would want me, as well as the rest of her friends, to feel right now. Kim would want us to feel enjoyment, comfort, ease, happiness. And in your memory, Kim, we will. In your memory, Kim, I promise to take pleasure in and embrace my geekiness and never shy away from those things that I love to watch, listen, eat, say, overall enjoy. Kim's legacy as a great friend to so many people should be, nay, must be, celebrated. And until my last breath, it will be. Before I go, I want to thank everyone for listening to these stories about our close friend Kimberley Chapin. As you can tell, she touched the lives of so many people. She was a wonderful, energetic, amazing, beautiful, fabulous, awesome girl. If anything sums up Kim, she was unforgettable. I want to play for you a song that sums up the impact Kim has been to everybody's lives. The song comes from the album Rhythm of the Pride Land, songs inspired by The Lion King. The first song on the album is called He Lives in You, performed by Lee Boehm. The song expresses that while someone may be physically gone, their influences forever stay within us all. A statement true of Kimberley, if ever there was one. I love you, Kim. We all love you. We're going to miss you. I leave you with something a wise being once said to another Kimberley years ago. I feel if Zordon knew the Kimberley we all knew, he would have said these same words to her, as well as so much more.
Rangers, as I speak to you now, my thoughts and feelings are divided. Kimberley, you have been a proud warrior and have defended our planet valiantly. Kimberley, thanks to you, the legacy is in good hands. I cannot thank you enough for everything you have done as a Power Ranger.